So as I said before, people do not wish to be part of the recording and just take your video off. This evening is a very special evening for JDigest and for Camp Simcha. We welcome Matti, Ruben and Kezia to an experience for us as an audience is going to be able to understand and hear from them all in their experiences. For those people that are on this evening's call and wish to ask questions, please feel free to use the chat group. Everyone is muted, so will not be able to ask any questions, but use the chat group. If you wish to ask a question but wish to remain anonymous, then feel free to message me directly and I'll pass that through. This evening, Matti will be doing the introductions and Matti will be chairing the event itself, and we'll be speaking in conversation with Ruben and Kezia. My name is Daniel Gillis. I work for Camp Simcha, and Camp Simcha has been supporting children with different conditions, medical conditions, for over 25 years now. The last number of years, we've been supporting children with and their families with Crohn's, colitis, and other gastric conditions. And I think this evening for us is very special because it's about bringing to life the actual stories behind each condition. And without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Matti, who will take us through the rest of the evening.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this live event, Gut Conversation, Living with Crohn's, Colitis and a Stoma. This event is in collaboration with the charity JDigest, who run events for people with Crohn's and colitis, and Camp Simcha, who help children with serious illnesses. Just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Matti Fisher, I'm 17 and I live with Crohn's disease. About 4 months ago, I released a documentary highlighting my long journey with Crohn's, and I'm now a young ambassador at JDigest. We did an event similar to this a couple months ago focusing on my story, but today I will be asking the questions. We are delighted to have with us Kezia, who just celebrated her 21st birthday, who has ulcerative colitis and a stoma, and Ruben, who is 16 and has Crohn's disease. The way this event is going to work is I'm going to interview Ruben for the first 10 minutes, followed by a conversation with Kezia. Afterwards, we'll be taking questions from you, the audience. So send in your questions via the chat function either on Facebook or in the Zoom, and we'll try to ask as many as possible at the end. So you can send them throughout, and we will ask them all at the end. So if there's one that comes on your mind, don't wait till the end to ask it. You can keep writing on the chat. I'll be monitoring it throughout. So without further ado, let's get started. So firstly, welcome Ruben. So we're going to go back to when you were first diagnosed. What were your symptoms that made you realise anything was wrong?
Symptoms, there were, I'd say, maybe 3 main ones. So there's a lot of symptoms I had, but I think going back to the beginning, weight loss was a huge symptom. I lost a lot of weight, especially my year 9 age. The other one, running throughout my whole experience has been horrendous, and it's the exhaustion, fatigue and tiredness. I found it very hard to do. Coming back, I just collapsed on the bed with exhaustion, like tiredness and fatigue for me, one of the worst symptoms that I faced.
So once you finally went to a doctor and explained everything that was happening, did you get diagnosed very quickly or did it take a while?
No, it was a pretty long process. You know, I had to have blood tests, stool tests, endoscopy. It was probably over a month, 2 months before I actually got diagnosed with Crohn's after my endoscopy and colonoscopy in hospital. So it wasn't a short process.
So when you were diagnosed, what medications were you given originally? Yeah.
So yeah. So basically, I was given azathioprine 100 milligrams day. And recently I've been put on adalimumab. It's an injection which also lowers the...
And from these medications that you've been on, did you have any side effects?
The side effects were mainly, you know, the tiredness and exhaustion, and lowered my immunity as well.
And you mentioned the injection adalimumab. How did you find it, and did it work for you straight away, or did it take a while to settle in?
You know, it was, I've been on it now over a year, and it was a slow process, but as the more I used, it became adapted to taking injections, and it just got easier.
So you mentioned all these changes in the medication and lifestyle, but did you have to change your diet at all? Do you find any particular foods give you worse symptoms than others? How was that for you?
In the beginning, I was probably most affected, and towards you know, sort of during lockdown, mainly sticking to foods such as meat and eggs, which, you know, sort of helped me and was just easier on my stomach.
Okay, so the connection's a bit poor to Ruben, so we're gonna go to Kezia and then we'll come back to Ruben afterwards. Welcome, Kezia. Happy birthday for the other day.
Thank you very much.
Could you just quickly give us a quick background of your journey with colitis? How were you diagnosed, and thereafter what treatments were you put on?
So I had gastrointestinal symptoms and really bad chronic fatigue for about 6 to 8 months before I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed incorrectly a couple of times with gastroenteritis and just given antibiotics and sent on my way until I went to go and see my gastroenterologist, and I did a flexible sigmoidoscopy, which confirmed ulcerative colitis. This was bang in the middle of study leave for my A-levels, put on very high dose steroids to keep it under control. Then after, I was put on immunosuppressants. I left for my gap year following September, which I only lasted on for about 2.5 months. And then I came home, was hospitalized for a week. And then I tried all the biologics and the different immunosuppressants for about a year. I tried everything. Well, everything that was suited for me. Not all medications are suited for every person. And then I had stoma surgery in December 2019, which was 9 months ago.
So when was this surgery first discussed along your journey?
I think probably when I came back from my gap year, it was first mentioned, but it was as a last resort. The plan was always to try all the medications, hope that they worked. For many people, they do work really well, and they can get their disease under control. Unfortunately, for me, it didn't work. I had stoma surgery, and since then, it's been much better.
So originally, when you were told that you were going to have the surgery for stoma, how did you feel originally about having the surgery and then living with stoma?
I was terrified. It's a very scary thought to go through, but after being unwell for so long, I was ready to take back control of my body. I wanted to have my life back, and that's exactly what happened. I had surgery and I haven't looked back.
So the thought of having a surgery, which you mentioned, was it different to actually having a surgery, like the experience of what you imagined it to be and how it turned out to be in the end?
I think I prepared myself pretty well. I found 2 YouTubers that have stoma bags, and I watched all their videos. I even missed lectures to watch their videos. I don't think my parents would be happy to hear that. And So I knew it was going to be tough, but I knew what I was expecting. The nurses were great. The painkillers I really struggled with. Some of the drugs they give you, like the opioids, like the morphine and stuff, I didn't react very well to. So that was really tough, and it makes you feel not great. So I tried to get myself off the opioids, and I had other painkillers, which helped a lot. But it was tough, but it was all worth it.
How did you find your recovery from the surgery? Did it take a long time to get used to having a stoma, or to get used to it quite quickly?
Recovery was about 6 weeks. They told me it would be about 6 to 8 weeks. It was weird, but the nurses in the hospital wouldn't I didn't leave hospital until I was confident enough to change my bag myself. They taught me how to, and so when I eventually did have to change my bag for the first time at home, I was pretty confident. I knew what I was doing. I had a physiotherapist in hospital who gave me exercises and would make me walk up and down the ward every day, so recovery was all right.
So do you find the stoma to be something that restricts your life massively? So for example, going out, socialising, or is it just back to life as normal?
Could you repeat that, please? I can't hear you properly.
Did you find the stoma to be something that restricted your life in general, or is your life pretty much back to usual before surgery?
It does not restrict me whatsoever. Before surgery, I had major restrictions. I couldn't eat what I wanted. I couldn't go where I wanted without knowing where the nearest bathroom would be. But now I can eat almost everything. I can go anywhere without having to worry about anything. I don't have to. And I also don't have chronic fatigue anymore, which is a great thing.
That is great. You mentioned having study leave, how it started around then, your A-levels. Did it affect your exams in general, do you think, like when you were taking your exams?
I probably didn't think so at the time because the steroids kept me pretty steady. But retrospectively, I suffered a lot throughout year 13. So I wasn't on top of my work as much as I could, but luckily I got grades that were good enough to get me into university, which I'm happily studying now.
That's great. So why do you think it's important to talk about your illness? Do you think in the Jewish community, people don't talk so openly about medical conditions and people hide from them?
I think it's so important to discuss it, especially diseases such as IBD, because you look at me and you wouldn't know that there's anything wrong. It's an invisible disease, and people need to be aware that there are people out there that you can't see that there's something wrong, but there is. I've had dirty looks so many times if I'm coming out of a disabled bathroom, and it's not right. But also within the Jewish community, it's much more important that people know about IBD because genetically it's more prevalent within our community. And I think I'm a preacher for going to the doctor as soon as something's wrong, gastrointestinally. So people need to know that there are things that are going on. It's like how lots of people get tested for Tay-Sachs because we know that that's more prevalent within our community. We also need to know that IBD is also more prevalent.
So throughout your whole journey with colitis and the stoma, have you found that your friends and family have been very supportive?
Definitely. I don't know what I would have done without them. My parents coming to countless doctor's appointments every week. My friends calling me the whole time, visiting me when they were in London or like back from university. My sister going to the shops to buy me chocolate at 10:30 at night. They've all been wonderful. And my brother. He was great as well.
How has it affected your life in general? Do you feel like you have grown from the experience, and if so, in what way?
Definitely, I'm a much stronger person for it, I think. I've also learned how to prioritise things differently. I definitely prioritise my health more than other things now. I also learn like which friends I can rely on more, and I also look at the bigger picture much more often than looking at the tiny things in life.
Now, thinking about like thinking back to yourself when you were first diagnosed and when you first told about having surgery, what do you wish you knew when you were told you would need surgeries, and what advice would you give someone in your similar position now, having gone through it and knowing?
Well, each person's journey is completely different. That's a really key point to know, that no drug is going to work the same way for two people, and surgery might be different for other people. There's sometimes complications and things like that. But just know that I think with IBD, it's like chronic fatigue is very common. So it's important for people to not feel guilty if they have to cancel on their friends last minute, and if you can't go to this event or that party, that you know that you have to look after yourself first. I think it's also really important to tell your family and friends what you're going through, because they won't know how to help you unless they know exactly what's going on. And most of your friends and family care for you, love you, and they want to know how they can help, even if it is just going to the shops to buy you something that you can't get yourself out of bed to do it yourself.
That is great. Thank you so much, Kezia, for all that insight. While we wait, Ruben, to just quickly get a better connection, we're going to answer a few questions that people have been sending in so far. If you have any questions coming to you, don't forget to send them in via the Zoom chat function or the Facebook chat, and I will try and ask as many as possible. So we have one question here which says, you guys are legends. What has promoted you to start talking about it so openly? What would be the first advice you would recommend to patients your own age or younger when first diagnosed? So, Kezia, you touched on this, but why do you think it's important to speak in public and tell basically the world about your condition?
I think it's important for just people to know, like, if you're talking about invisible illnesses as a whole, lots of people wouldn't think about it. You see the disabled sign, it's someone in a wheelchair, but the majority of people that are disabled or have a chronic illness aren't in a wheelchair. And it's just so important that you can tell your friends and your family what you're going through so that they can help you. And because if you keep it all bottled up, no one's going to know how to help you and what to do, and no one's going to know how to treat you and things like that.
I've got another question that's come in. What's been the most difficult part of having a stoma?
I kind of love mine. Most difficult part, I'm actually struggling to think of it. Sometimes the skin gets a bit sore around it, but there's not really that. I'm fortunate enough to not have had any major issues with it so far. You can get a blockage here and there, and you might end up in A&E on a drip with just some fluids to help you rehydrate yourself, but otherwise I haven't had any major issues so far.
Thank you very much, Kezia. We'll come back to you later with more questions from the audience. Just a reminder to send them in throughout. I believe Ruben is back, so welcome back, Ruben.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I apologise. I really apologise. It's a really bad area, but you can hear me now.
So we're going to continue on from where we left off in terms of the questions.
Okay, cool.
So we'll start back at, did you have to change your diet at all when diagnosed or whilst having Crohn's disease? Do you find that there are any particular foods give you worse symptoms than others?
So in the beginning, so the foods that affected my Crohn's most were, I say, gluten and dairy. They triggered my Crohn's the most and really made me feel horrible after I ate them. And as I've gone on, like as my journey with Crohn's, I've sort of learned how to adapt and sort of me helped and
Ruben, would you just be able to repeat the last bit of that question, please? We lost
did you hear? So over these last 2 months, I've invested in the keto diet, which basically involves meat, cheese, and eggs, and it basically really helped me and allowed my stomach to sort of calm down because I was only eating good foods, and just made me feel a lot better.
So throughout your whole journey with Crohn's disease, have you found that your family and friends have been supportive?
Whole way, like my whole journey, they've always been by my side. I was, better friends and family to have around me, supporting me throughout my journey.
That's really great. So I know that you're big on sports. How has it affected your sport, especially football? Did your energy levels change because of it, and how is that now?
Before my diagnosis, I would find it very hard to play for more than even just half a game, because my body just didn't want to play. My body was just not up for playing. I didn't have enough energy to get me throughout the whole game. However, now I'm fine. I'm good. I can play the whole game. I've got bags of energy. I'm happy to be there. But it was before my diagnosis, I could barely even ask to half due to my lack of energy.
Mm-hmm. So has it also affected your school life in general and your studies?
In the beginning, I could go to school, I could learn and just about grasp some information throughout the day. But the minute I came home, I was sort of collapsed on the bed due to exhaustion and lack of energy. And, that is where it really get me, because I didn't have enough energy to sort of get me through that school day. So when I came home, I really couldn't do much besides lie on my bed because of how exhausted I was throughout the day.
And I assume that that's much better now with the medications you're on. What advice would you give others in your similar position? So go back to when you were first diagnosed. What do you wish you knew? And what would you say to people who are just recently being diagnosed?
I'd say, don't stop fighting. Don't stop until you get your diagnosis, until you find out what's going on, because there's many doctors, many people that will tell you, you're fine, there's nothing going on. And you just got to keep going, no matter all the odds, no matter who tells you, to stop. You've got to carry on going until you get your diagnosis. And then once you're there, with all the friends and family around you, carry on fighting, carry on being the strong person you are, and don't really let anything stop you from doing what you want to in life.
That is very great advice for anyone out there. Finally, Ruben, I believe you've recently told that you're now disease-free. How was that for you emotionally finding out, and how did you find out?
I wouldn't call it disease-free, I'd call it remission, which is basically when my Crohn's is under control for the time being. And it was a very emotional day for me because it was been 2 years and, it hasn't been easy. And I think just finding out that my Crohn's is finally under control for the time being was just a relief, and it just proved that, hard work, dedication, a change in diet, a positive mindset can really make a difference to your situation and what you're dealing with.
That is, I can see there's a few questions coming through now. So we're going to bring Kezia back, and we're going to ask questions to Kezia and Ruben based on what everyone's sending in through the Zoom chat. Just remind us, send in questions, and we will ask them, and they should hopefully get answered. We'll try to answer as many as possible. So keep sending them in. First one is, have school been good about it? So I think it's primarily to Ruben now, how school's been about it, and Kezia, how's university with it?
Kezia, do you want to go first, and then I'll...
Yeah, sure. So I actually had my surgery in December, so I had done 4 months at university with ulcerative colitis, and then I did 2 and a bit months before COVID hit with a stoma. So I'm at UCL, and they've been unbelievable. They gave me, for exams, for example, they gave me extra time and rest breaks. For lectures, like my attendance isn't as important as everyone else's. They give me allowances. They make sure that in labs I had a chair to sit on. So if my chronic fatigue was bad, they let me use staff toilets or like the nearest bathroom available. They've been absolutely wonderful. I can't fault them.
Ruben, how has school been for you?
So So before school knew, obviously it was very hard because I'd come home and just collapse on my bed due to like the lack of energy and fatigue that I was facing. But after school found out, a couple of the staff took me down to the lunch hall, basically asking me, what sort of foods I prefer to eat. And I got rest breaks in my exams. Year 11, I was finding it very hard to deal with my GCSEs, and I was allowed to drop a subject due to the stress I was facing. The school were, I'd say, on my side and were supporting me throughout, when I told them my condition.
This is a question for Kezia. Did you have to change your diet with the stoma?
With the stoma, not really. There's a couple things that I can't eat, such as mushrooms and sweet corn and dried coconut, of all things, just because those are foods that either absorb water or don't digest easily enough and could cause a blockage. But otherwise, I can pretty much eat anything. When I had colitis, I could only eat white foods. I could eat pasta, rice, and chicken, basically, and bananas. And now I have a much, much more varied diet.
That's very good. This is a question, I think, for both of you. Do you feel embarrassed of your condition? So, Ruben, do you want to go first, and then Kezia?
No, of course I don't feel embarrassed of my condition because it makes me who I am, and I think it's really important to sort of embrace it and to tell people about it and to open up and share my story, because I feel like it can inspire others to also open up about their invisible condition, because we all go through battles, we fight invisible battles daily, and I think it's so much easier to open up and talk about it rather than just keeping it in, and it's just going to make it worse. So I think embracing it and really talking about it and not feeling embarrassed about it is probably, for me, the way to go forward and how I've dealt with it.
And for me, I think it's really hard because lots of people aren't going to talk about their bowel movements to each other. And that's a very English attitude to have. Well, most people don't really either. So it's one of those diseases, it's not a pretty disease, if there is such a thing. So it was hard at the start, but I think all my friends are fed up of hearing about it, to be honest. By now I talk so openly about it all the time.
It's not a bad problem to have. Another question, Kezia. How many minutes on average a day would you say your stoma takes up?
Okay, so I change my bag every other day, probably, and that takes maximum 10 minutes. Normally, I think I've gotten it down to 7. And then I empty my bag. It has a valve of sorts, I think you could call it that. I empty that about 5 or 6 times a day, and that is as quick as going to the toilet regularly, like to urinate. It's very fast.
I've now got a question that's come in for Ruben. How did you get into remission? Was it through a change in diet, or was it through treatment? And if so, what treatment?
So I think treatment's obviously a part of it, and the treatment I was on was, and still am, is azathioprine and adalimumab, and they basically work together at lowering the inflammation in your stomach, in my small intestine. But I think the most part of it is really down to me and my attitude towards it. I think a positive mindset, dedication, hard work, and is a huge part of it. And the change in diet for me was the keto diet, which was mainly meat, cheese, and eggs, which I think really turned things around for me and allowed my stomach to calm down and sort of get better, if that makes sense.
If anyone has any more questions, please do send them in through the chat function. We're happy to answer many more. So if you just write them in the chat function, we can answer them for you. We've just got another one through. I think this one is for both of you. What do you want to tell others to help them living with their conditions? What do you want to tell them?
So I think when it comes to living with, your own invisible sort of condition or whatever it is, I think don't let it stop you from, living your life and having fun and sort of, achieving your aspirations and your dreams. And I just don't think it should stop you living. Like, carry on living your life no matter how hard it is, there are things that are going to pull you down and stop you from doing that. But I think carrying on living your life to, you know, the fullest is probably what I tell people. Don't let it stop you from doing anything.
I agree. You have to definitely find whatever is right for you, whatever medication or diet, or if you need surgery. Also, it's also important to know the difference between Crohn's and colitis, because Crohn's can be anywhere in the digestive tract. Colitis is only in the large intestine. So surgery can be different for people with different conditions, but you have to figure out what's right for you, and I think that's it, really.
That's great advice from both of you. Thank you very much. I think this question is for both of you as well. Did the doctors tell you that changing diet helps, or did they just recommend medication?
Go on, Kanzi, you go first.
My doctor said to go low fiber, which is what I did pretty much for a year. I don't think I had a single raw vegetable during that time, which I actually really missed. And it definitely did help, because I know as soon as I would try reintroducing things which were of higher fiber content, my symptoms would get worse. So it was more, but it wasn't so much as helping to cure the disease or like get it into remission, but it was more as just maintaining, like keeping symptoms under control.
For me, it was more not what the doctors were sort of telling me, because the doctors were saying, you know, at one point, stop eating this and eat this. For me, it was more, I know what affects. I know what my stomach doesn't like me eating. So how about I make my own difference and eat foods that I know I'll be okay with. And I think, you know, listening to yourself, and, you know, is probably the most important thing about this condition, because you know your own body and you know what will help you to get better. And for me, the doctors didn't need to tell me that. I sort of knew what I should have been eating to sort of get me better.
So there's a question here: how has COVID affected your care? I'll quickly answer from my view, and then I'll pass on to Kezia and Ruben to get their opinion. From my point of view, COVID hasn't affected my care at all. When I was on infliximab until a few weeks ago, I was still going in every 8 weeks to have my infusions. I was very lucky there. They did move it to a different hospital to get us away from all the COVID patients. But if anything, that was a better care because they were being so careful. So yeah, I don't know what your experiences, Ruben and Kezia, were like.
So I think COVID-19 definitely, I'd say, was an advantage for me, because a very important part of me having Crohn's is I need to stay active, I need to keep fit, I need to carry on playing my football. And during lockdown, I worked out a lot, I ran a lot, and which benefited me hugely, because I need to keep active, I need to do my exercise. So in that respect, yeah, I was at an advantage because I had the time to do that sort of thing.
For me, I'm off medication and treatment since surgery, so I didn't have to go into hospitals for anything. I've had one appointment since, and it was pretty straightforward. You just wear a mask instead of not wearing a mask. And with my stoma nurse, she's someone who I go to if I have for all my stoma needs. And instead of having face-to-face appointments, we did phone calls or emails when I had an issue.
Another question, just wondering, as moving recently to the UK, does one get a better treatment going private, or can I fully rely on the NHS? I'm on the NHS and I find the treatments very good. I don't, Kezia and Ruben.
I think I started out, it was privately, but that was only as I was getting my diagnosis. I think it just sped up the process, but I'm on now NHS, and the treatment I'm getting has helped me to get to where I am, remission right now. So I think the NHS, especially in this country, will be an advantage for anyone going through the similar thing that we have been.
Like Ruben, I've done a bit of both, and I know lots of people that have done fully through the NHS. Absolutely outstanding. But sometimes going privately does speed up processes, but the NHS is wonderful and serves millions every day, so your choice.
Another question, as being somebody with fistulence, It takes me on average 45 minutes a day to manually empty my bowels. Have any of you had any similar experiences?
Wait, what do they have?
Fistulas.
Oh, I've never had a fistula, so I can't comment on that.
Yeah, I've never had one either, so I don't think I can.
No.
Another question, did you try any alternative treatments? I'm assuming that's to Kezia in regard to having a stoma.
Well, during colitis I did. I had, so I suffered from a lot of joint pain. So I had acupuncture and osteopathy every week. And I did try Chinese medicine for a week, but I didn't, that just didn't work out for me. I'm sure it does help many people out there, but not for me. And I also tried all these diets and things. So I did sugar-free and unprocessed food for 3 months, which was really hard as an avid chocolate lover. But you end up doing everything you can to try and help yourself.
Another question for Kezia. Are you in discussion with your doctors about having J-pouch surgery in the future? And if so, what are your thoughts about this idea?
Yes, so my surgery that I had was a subtotal colectomy, which means that I've left the rectal stump in. So I can later on go back for further surgery to create a J-pouch. At the moment, I'm happy where I am. I think I'm going to wait until the end of my degree to make any other decisions. But I don't know, the next step is either to have a further surgery to make it a permanent stoma, and I'd have to have my rectal stump removed, or it's to create a J-pouch. So I don't know yet, but they're both my options.
For both of you, or I guess all of us, have you found any forums that you've been able to interact with people with similar experiences? So I'll speak from my experience. Recently, I've seen there's been a massive increase in young people on social media sharing awareness and sharing their experiences. So that's, if I had found that earlier, about 4 or 5 years ago, I think that would have been much better for me. So I think just seeing other people's experiences, knowing that we're all in this together and you're not alone, really helps. So I would recommend looking on, especially on Instagram.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's right, you go first, it's fine.
I agree with that. Social media has been absolutely outstanding with helping. And I was shopping on Pretty Little Thing a couple months ago, and a woman who has a stoma had did a whole a bikini edit of high-waisted bikinis to help if you want to cover your stoma. That's an option. Obviously, you don't have to if you don't want to. But it's becoming, people are talking about it more. And I also joined the Crohn's and Colitis UK Facebook group, people sharing their experiences on different drugs or with different types of treatment or different surgeries, which I found really helpful. I read a couple of people's stoma stories before I had the surgery, and I read people's experiences on a drug called tofacitinib before I went on that, and I found it all very useful.
For me, it's taken me. So I opened up, probably got my story in July on Facebook and Instagram. I have a platform on there, and it's taken me nearly 2 years to open up. But when I finally did, the support on social media was unbelievable. And there's so many other people that I had no clue about, or even around the world, who have the same condition. And it's just nice to share with people my age, that you're not alone, and there are people that go through the same things. I think social media is just really good for that, because it's where we can connect and share our experiences.
A question, have any of you tried cannabis oil to help? I assume that's to help with the Crohn's and colitis, not for other uses.
I did. I tried CBD oil to help with with my joint pains and with some of the stomach pains as well. I didn't find it very effective. I found painkillers a bit easy, such as paracetamol, but some people, I've heard some great things about it.
I've tried it before. It's not the most nicest thing in the world, I can't lie, but probably hasn't helped an unbelievable amount, but all these little things that we do, I'm sure, contribute to the end result, which is for me right now remission. So yeah.
Has anyone tried homeopathy? I think that's how you say it. Anyone?
Yeah, I took some natural extracts as well. As I said, I really did try everything. Again, might have helped, might not have helped, but I had the same outcome either way.
I think I have now. I have now.
Kezia, this is for you. Do you find having a stoma affects your relationships?
No, I have a boyfriend at the moment, and luckily he's a medical student, so I pretty much told him straight away, and he was very understanding.
Sorry, just before the question before, I was just thinking about it. If you're talking about that, I've actually had healing. I've been to a healer for my Crohn's, and I mean, it 100% definitely could have worked because of the imposition I am now. So in respect to that, I have had some healing done by a healer for my Crohn's. Sorry, it's cut in.
That's fine. What ideally would you have most liked to have been told or received when first being diagnosed or in the most acute stage of a flare-up? Ruben, do you want to go?
Yeah. So when it becomes what I'd like to be told, I think that there is an end result. Like, I know it's bad now, but it might not seem bad in the future. Like, it's controllable. It's not the nicest thing to have, but it's controllable. Just keep working through it, keep fighting, and just mainly don't let it stop you from just, living your life to the fullest. I think that's what I'd like to be told going through flare-ups and things like that.
Yes.
There's always a way. There's always a way to get to the end, like whether it is drugs or surgery or natural ways. If you want to go that way, there's always a way. Keep positive.
Question again for Kezia. Did you know what a stoma was before your diagnosis?
I don't think I did. Before diagnosis, I really don't think so. But then after diagnosis, I did, even before surgery was even talked about to me. But I don't think I knew anyone with one. Well, I knew them at the time, but I didn't know that they had a stoma because you can't see it.
Mm-hmm. Did either of you find that alternative medicine actually made the symptoms worse? So personally for me, I had a few drugs towards the start, such as a liquid diet like Modulin, which didn't really make the symptoms worse. It just didn't take away the symptoms, so everything kind of stayed the same. But Kezia and Ruben, I don't know if anything took it the other direction.
So I'm still, every now and again, I still have them. They're called Ensure Plus. They are the liquid diet, which I was put on. In the beginning, when my, everything was so inflamed, it was they have dairy in those liquid diet, so it wasn't a great combination. And I was not dealing with it very well. But as time got on and the inflammation started to go down, it was the medication I was on was fine and it was getting me better. It was just at the start, it wasn't great.
I reacted pretty badly to a couple medications. Like I was on azathioprine, which Ruben's on at the moment, and I would throw up every time I took it. So obviously I came off that pretty quickly. But I don't think any of the natural remedies made anything worse.
And another question for Kezia. Can you eat high fiber foods again, or are you still careful?
I can pretty much eat everything. I avoid very tough foods like kale. I think in small quantities it could be all right, or if I tried it cooked first, which sometimes helps break down fiber. But pretty much I can eat most things.
That's great. And with that question, that brings the Q&A session to an end. So we would like to thank everyone for coming out and listening, everyone live on Facebook, everyone live on Zoom, and everyone who's watching this after it's gone, because this is going to be recorded and uploaded afterwards. We'd also like to thank Kezia and Ruben for coming on and sharing their stories.
Thanks for having us. Sorry for a bad connection in the beginning.
And if any of you have any questions, you can always just get in touch. if you get in touch with Deborah from JDigest, she can pass you on our contacts if you have any questions for any of us. And I'll pass it back to Daniel.
So just wanted to thank very much, firstly, Matty, Ruben and Kazia for their brave story. I think for many of us here on the call this evening, on the Zoom this evening, we've learned a lot about you all, and some incredible stories to go with. So thank you very much for being open, for coming through to us. Also a big thank you from Camp Simcha to JDigest for the incredible work they do within the community. And as Matty said, this will be uploaded at some point, whether it be social media or on YouTube, and we will publicly send the link round. So just a big thank you for all coming out, and hope you have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.